This is the DUI that the evidence tape that they gave me. That would be Officer Bob Scott out of the Blossburg Police Department. But me and my eyewitness can tell you there is no way he followed us through here. I believe he was sitting right there because we did not see absolutely any lights until just about where that car is, just about now, maybe a little bit beyond here. And he was not this close. And there's no street lights on there. I'm pretty sure when I drove by it a week later, there were no street lights down through that road. But they obviously look like street lights. And he said that I left the left-hand side of the road, and then that was his reason for following me. For a half a mile. Well, if he followed me because he thought I was drunk for a half a mile, he should be fired. Turn-in signals are on. He was never this close. You see, I was already parked in that driveway when his lights came on that night. My keys were not in the ignition. They were hanging from my waist, and he stood in front of this car talking to me. I got out of my car and stood at the back of my car talking to him. But that's not what we're seeing here. I'm wondering if this isn't when he returned a registration to me. It just seems like with all the alteration we've seen on the DUI or the tasering, that this one's been altered exactly the same way. Is there anything about my demeanor here that would stipulate any idea of me being drunk, other than I am extremely tired because this was the first full-time job I had worked in a long time. It was civil service. I drove a mile to work and back. Tioga County Dental had just replaced tried to fix them, giving me buck teeth. And when I'm tired, I usually do speak slower. And with my disabilities, I actually hurt more than I ever have. I'm showing him that I have false teeth. And I'm not taking a breathalyzer. We're talking about the breathalyzer here. I'm not doing a breathalyzer. This is after it does not appear that look, he's taking me off camera to do the breathalyzer. If you're going to use the breathalyzer as evidence, why take me off camera? Because when he did, I had gone back and told his chief of police that he pushed me forward and backwards trying to shove the breathalyzer in my mouth. It did not vibrate and it did not make a noise. I did not breathe into the breathalyzer. Yet somehow he claimed that I tested positive, and I knew a blood draw would have proved my innocence. This was forced on me, a sobriety test, because I told him right from the get-go, I'm tired, I'm disabled, I'm not doing a sobriety test. Here is where I'm being told to walk a straight line. Now you got to remember, I've had osteoporosis for 25 years. I'm in dress shoes on a road that has rocks. Many people have seen me drinking. I hurt. If I had been drinking, there is no way I would have been able to have done this. It must have stepped on a stone right there. Why is the camera freeze right there, though? I wonder if that, I don't remember seeing that before. And this is when he's telling me that I did not count. His documentation later states that it was because I didn't have toe to heel. I says, look, I'm dyslexic. I'm not going to try to count. I'm tired. I even talk backwards when I'm really tired. I cannot count as I'm walking. And this is right before he took me off camera for the breathalyzer. Here I'm just about ready to do the stand on one foot. And to me, people have seen me when I'd been drinking. There could be 100 witnesses here had I wanted any of them to be endangered, as I feel. I mean, I've been jailed now since July of last year, knowing that the blood draw policies are wrong by allowing the arresting officer to have custody of that blood at any point prior to testing, and then they're sending it to the testing facility. There I'm standing on one leg. Who would be able to do that? And I'm telling him, I'm disabled. And I put the leg out again and then step back because it's hurting my body. There I am doing it again. Now to me, I think I'm passing the... And who is he texting? I mean, he's texting somebody throughout this evidence as well. Why can't I subpoena his texting and phone calls that seemed to be important while he was doing an official duty? And right here is my probable cause that Officer Bob Scott wrote up, that was sent to Judge Carlson's office in Mansfield, stating here that he was following behind. But in the video that he gave me there, you witnessed that he was pretty much following behind. Did you also notice how fuzzy and everything else it was? I only seen his lights at 3 different points down that road. Another thing that's important is he has my middle name as Sue, and my first name is Billie Sue. So I'm not even charged, you know, my middle name is not Sue. My records and my medical never changed until after this, when things started saying Billie and Sue as a middle name. I've never had this problem. When I showed you the Bath VA report, my name was Billie Sue. There's not a middle initial because I don't have a middle initial. But here he says that I totally left the right side of the road, and the driver's side tire touching the left dirt shoulder. Did you see that in the tape? No, of course we didn't. It's also common knowledge that town cops don't record as they're going down the road. They only could record once the lights come on. So he followed that up with failed to maintain lane. But over here, he don't say anything on this probable cause. He don't say anything at all about leaving the road. He also says that my breathalyzer was a .125. And that he took me to the laboratory technician, drew the blood, Robbie English, and the final BAC was 1.143. Make sure you can see that. That means I would have been extremely drunk. Then it was sent by the PA State Police Wyoming laboratory. Was a report from them. So how evidence, the way words change in between after being put into a court of law. This one over here states that it was done and sealed on the 2nd of August. This one does too. And why does that say my commission? But the problem here is Judge Carlson should have never been able to have had any part in this case. Here is with my first public defender, got Carlson excused for the DUI, and we went to court before Brian W. Edgecombe of Elkland, and here my address says Billie Sue. How come the paper and my address on this says Billie Sue if everybody else's that claims has a middle name would have said Billie S. Atkinson? But look at the date here. I went to court before Edgecombe September 19th. I was tasered September 27th. So Judge Carlson was already recused. Why, when I got tasered, they used Carlson to jail me? And there is the seal. He admitted during hearing, I never got a hearing, they tricked me into signing paperwork that somehow put me on bail after the cop had dropped me back off in my car to drive away. Here's the last time I turned in the Pennsylvania State Trooper Jason F. Miller when they had charged my son this after about a year after they would not charge my ex-husband, who already had felony assault, anything a year prior. And this was 2010 when I last turned in exactly the same Pennsylvania trooper. Since all this, I now have an alias that no paperwork in all of my life ever said Sue was my middle name until both of these charges. That was my old married name back in 1994. They're now calling it an alias. This is the letter that my ex-husband wrote a year after he caused the facial injuries that we seen. A year after he caused those face injuries, that he states that we mailed to the Attorney General, states that he was on charges and divorced me in 2001. I got a PFA, and while the PFA was there, Billie Sue was ordered a PFA at that time, where I drove by her home and also walked by it with her failed attempts to get the system to enforce stipulations of breaking that PFA back then. Again last summer, 2009, in a situation that ended with me drinking so much I caused her again much pain, which after the severity of made me stop drinking. Well, most of the time, I guess. The police came to gain my statement, and the incident happened in October 31st, 2009. And even after telling the police officer I had no memory of the incident, it influenced me or forced me to sign a statement that was speculation on my behalf, and then intimidated me to sign at the bottom of it that I did not want charges on Billie Sue. This letter was mailed in 2010, the last time I had problems with Pennsylvania State Trooper out of F Barracks. This includes Lycoming and Tioga Counties State Police, run out of the run out of Montoursville State Police Chief. So he wraps up this with that he feels the police had no right to threaten her with charges back then, but they never did charge me. But he says that he does question that the system may derive unfair, biased treatment in situations in reference to Billie Sue, who is a law-abiding citizen. And he understands this will not harm him in any way by writing this, and he has done this without any threat and intimidation, and does allow for no legal action to come of him. The state will, in his understanding, he will help the state to investigate local authorities fairly and make more accountable their actions taken against citizens in an unfair way of enforcing the law.